Hi guys, Lincoln here. Welcome to another LaunchBox video. We have something super exciting to talk about today, and that is the release of LaunchBox 14.0. It's been a while since we bumped that major version number, but this release ended up growing into something much bigger than we originally expected. In fact, this release actually started life as 13.28, but after a very long beta cycle, a ton of testing, and some pretty substantial changes across LaunchBox and BigBox, we felt like this one deserved the big 14.0. There are definitely some shiny new features here, but a huge part of 14.0 is about making the things you already use every day faster, smoother, smarter, and more reliable. So let's get into it. One of the biggest additions in 14.0 is the new LaunchBox Reader. LaunchBox Reader gives manuals, strategy guides, magazines, and other documents a proper home directly inside LaunchBox and BigBox. It supports PDFs, EPUBs, image-based documents, and other material you might want to keep alongside your games. And rather than just launching those files externally, Reader gives you an actual reading experience. You've got realistic page turns, different layout and appearance options, bookmarks, resume support, and full customizable keyboard and controller support. And because Reader works across our entire ecosystem, you can sit back on the couch and pull up a manual or strategy guide without leaving BigBox. We've also cleaned up how all of the extra stuff associated with a game is organized. What used to broadly live under additional applications is now better organized into applications, versions, documents, and links. While applications can be utilities and companion programs, versions can hold things like regional versions and fan translations. Documents can hold things like manuals and guides, while links can hold websites to community resources and other useful places around the internet. This gives everything a more natural place to live while making it all easier to find and manage. Another area we spent a lot of time on is performance, and if you got a really large library, this might be the one thing you notice most. The default list view has been heavily reworked to perform much better, particularly in large libraries with lots of badges, custom columns, and a lot of games. The default image grid has also had a ton of work focused heavily on performance, better image refreshing, and clearer selection behavior. And there's also a new optional game index scroll bar that gives you a live index of your collection as you scroll. It dynamically shows the letters and numbers actually represented in your game list. Change your sort to something like genre or release date, and the index changes with it, showing genre names, years, and more. It's a fairly small looking feature that becomes incredibly useful the more you use it. BigBox also got a pretty significant browsing upgrade in 14.0. You can now filter and sort your games directly inside of BigBox. This has been a pretty long-standing request, and the whole experience from the ground up has been designed around controller use. Set some filters, change the sort order, and let the default theme guide you the rest of the way with incredibly useful game index lists and dynamic labels. There's also been a lot of work across BigBox to make navigation smoother and more dependable, particularly with larger libraries and media-heavy themes. Smoother transitions, a steadier wheel, and a really nice improvement to 3D model navigation are just some of the things you'll notice while using BigBox. We really spent a lot of time on the small under-the-hood details, making sure to adjust video, audio, and artwork handling. The end result is a BigBox that feels more polished, more useful, and just a whole lot nicer to spend time in. Another pretty substantial change worth mentioning is something you won't necessarily see directly. We've created a brand new concept called the LaunchBox Media Engine. This system allows video and audio playback to run through a cleaner, more isolated media system. From a user's perspective, the goal is smoother previews, cleaner transitions, fewer playback interruptions, and better stability. But separating the media system from LaunchBox itself also gives us a much better foundation going forward. We can make improvements to the media engine independently rather than every media-related change requiring a new LaunchBox release. Startup videos have also been completely rewritten and are now handled directly inside Big Box. That's particularly helpful for hardware configurations where startup videos have historically been problematic, including some Windows handhelds. This next one sounds simple, but if you've ever gone hunting through LaunchBox's options pages, you'll probably appreciate it. Options are now searchable. You can search by the actual setting name or related terms and quickly narrow things down to what you're looking for. And Control Comma now opens options directly. There are also some improvements around image preferences, including a global default image group and an easier way to return individual platforms and playlists back to that default. Starting up and shutting down the app has also gotten quite a bit smarter in 14.0. The startup splash has been redesigned and now gives you much clearer information about what's happening while LaunchBox loads. Closing LaunchBox now gets a progress window too, so instead of wondering whether LaunchBox is doing something or not, you can actually see what's happening, and if something does hang, there's now a force close option. You can also configure applications that should automatically close alongside LaunchBox or Big Box, which is particularly useful for helper programs, overlays, and other software used in more customized setups. And separate LaunchBox installations can now run independently, which should make life much easier for people using portable libraries, test builds, or separate production and experimental installs. There's also a major change under the hood in 14.0 that ties several parts of LaunchBox together. We've completely reworked how LaunchBox monitors the game you're actually playing. Previously, some of this behavior relied much more heavily on things like the active window and timers. While it worked, it didn't really know what the real game process was doing. One place that you really could see that was with startup screens. Previously, you were essentially deciding how long the startup screen should remain while the game launched. So depending on how long that particular game took to start, the screen could disappear too early. The new game monitor system actually monitors the real game process. So the new startup screen waits for the real game to load before it allows itself to transition. This means startup screens can adapt much better to games with different loading times. And it gets even more interesting with storefront games. We've added storefront-specific logic so LaunchBox can tell the difference between something like Steam or Epic opening versus the actual game you're trying to play. Instead of seeing the storefront and assuming that's your game, LaunchBox can ignore those intermediary processes and keep waiting for the real game. And once LaunchBox finds your game, it keeps monitoring that process for the entire session. So you can Alt-Tab away, browse your library, do something else on your PC, or even pull up the game's strategy guide using the new reader. LaunchBox doesn't suddenly forget which game you were having fun in. That also means much more accurate play session and playtime statistics, because LaunchBox is tracking the game process itself rather than simply assuming that losing focus means you're finished playing. It's one of those changes that's mostly invisible, but it makes launching, monitoring, and returning from games considerably smarter. Let's talk about something you can definitely see. Premium users get 2 new 3D case models in 14.0. First, there's a new 3D double jewel case. It supports automatic spine handling and dual spine artwork for games that originally came in those larger cases. And we've also added a completely new 3D cassette case. You've got straight back, angled back, and clear variants, portrait and landscape layouts, customizable plastic and cover colors, and proper J-card spine artwork. And if you don't have dedicated spine artwork, it can fall back to a clear logo or plain text. So if you've got an old computer game collection, you can get that much closer to smelling those games. And that's why this has become LaunchBox 14.0. There's a lot of new things here, but probably the biggest theme of this release is making LaunchBox and Big Box better at the things you use every day. Faster libraries, smoother Big Box navigation, smarter game monitoring, better media playback, easier settings, improved startup and shutdown behavior, and quite a few systems underneath all of that we've rebuilt to make all our lives a little bit easier. This was also one of the longest beta cycles we've ever had, so a massive thank you to everyone who tested, reported issues, made suggestions, and helped us polish this release. As always, you can grab LaunchBox 14.0 from the LaunchBox website, and you'll find a link below to the full changelog. Which new feature are you most excited about? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching and happy gaming.